Hello, and welcome to the Green Grassroots of Football with me, Andy Glover.
And me, Mark Grinter.
And I would just like to thank our sponsor, Rachel's Bookkeeping, for all of your bookkeeping needs. So, tonight we'll be taking a look at the silent weekend, as the FA have confirmed that it will be held on the weekend of March the 15th and 16th. We'll look at the reasons behind it, what it hopes to achieve, and whether it's actually effective or not. So, before we head into the pod, my usual quote. Work hard in silence. Let your success be your noise. And that was a US R&B singer called Frank Ocean. Which is a decent quote, I think. The very first National Silent Support Weekend was held on November the 5th and 6th, 2022. Prior to that, the FA had held trials at various stages, but this was the first national event. It was promoted with posters and videos which clubs could use on their social media channels to advertise it. Coaches and spectators were asked to refrain from shouting and to simply applaud good play from both teams. For 2023, the FA had received feedback from over 3,000 participants, and because of this had tweaked the idea so that an option was there for coaches to verbally communicate, but spectators were still restricted to clapping. But the league could still decide to run it as a completely silent weekend if they wanted to, with just the children's voices. That decision was left to individual leagues. And I believe the Somerset FA are going with the coaches' voices, and that's it again.
Coaches' voices clapping.
I think they went with last year for 24 as well. So for 2025, they've gone with the coaches' voices.
Yeah, that is correct.
Okay. So from the FA, the aim of the National Silent Sport Weekend is to reduce pressure on youth players at grassroots level and give them a better opportunity and environment to find their own voice, improve their on-pitch communication skills, develop their own game, and most importantly, have fun. Across the National Silent Sport Weekend, they encourage supporters to show their support by applauding good play from both teams, but refrain from talking or shouting, with coaches supporting both players if they need to. This is to create an enjoyable, safe and developmental experience for all youth players so that they can play the game with freedom, without pressure, and without an overemphasis on winning at all costs. And the quote from the FA, players have told us it helped them talk more on the pitch and communicate as a team, which is allowing them to make their own decisions, and more importantly, many of them found playing this way more enjoyable. The weekend is all about positive behaviours both on and off the pitch, and the FA are encouraging even more leagues and clubs to take part in the Silent Sport Weekend by contacting their county FA. So that was put out by the FA, I believe, for the 2022 one. That was their sort of... Now, actually, I looked into this. Suffolk FA have actually been running a silent weekend since 2015.
Yeah.
They were obviously one of the trial ones, because we did it
2016.
We did it in 2016.
Oh, yeah.
I'm sure we'll cover it. I put it down here, so we will discuss that. So we did it in 2016. We'll come back to that one. So Suffolk were obviously one of the trial ones, and obviously have since then found it successful and have carried on. But there's reasons behind it. Now, I mean, they say it's for it's to help them enjoyable, safe, and development experience. We both know that the Merseyside FA cancelled all youth matches one weekend. Was it 2 years ago? I believe
2 years ago, under 16s.
Due to parental behaviour, and I think our Asian Youth League done the same at under 16s.
Yeah, they 1 week they banned. Yeah, I think it was
all under 16s not last year, year before.
Yeah.
Because we were 16s last year, it was a year above us. So 2 years ago, they stopped the entire under 16 age group as well.
Yeah.
But that's all about bad behaviour.
Yeah.
But that was player. Was it? Or was it?
A player and parent.
Player and parent. Merseyside, it was parental bad behaviour, which is why they stopped it all. And I think this is part of why they want this silent weekend.
And I think that the key there is safety. I mean, again, which I'm sure anybody who's listening to this and a lot of the football would have seen in the press a few weeks ago at the under-10 boys game that turned into a mass brawl with parents and stuff. It's an under-10s boys game.
That's the one I sent you a link to in the site. Yeah.
So that
It's
I mean
unbelievable.
and that is still happening, and it's happening a lot. It's happening to a ridiculous amount, and it's.
I mean, this is it. The main thing is they want to create an enjoyable, safe, and developmental experience, and yet most reasons we need this is for the safe reason.
It's the safe.
It has to be the safe, and yet really it should be about the developmental to allow the children time to inquire, to go, okay, here's our instructions. Can you go out and explore that and try it?
Yeah.
But the reason behind it is increasingly, or just
Safety.
constantly, safety from parents shouting and getting abusive
and it going across the line. I mean, again, in general, I know of at least 5 or 6 incidents in the Bristol area within girls' football alone this year.
Yeah, and that's probably just normal for a league, isn't it?
Yeah, well, you said.
In terms of league, that's that league. Guarantee you that every other league has got the same issues, if not more.
Yeah, and so it's getting worse. It's there's no doubt about it. It's getting worse, and it's ridiculous behaviour of parents and coaches. To be fair, from what I'm hearing and seeing, is mainly parents.
Yeah.
Most coaches, certainly with the girls' side, and even what I've seen on the boys' side, the most 90% of coaches are pretty okay. You will always get a loose cannon in somebody once the red mist has gone down. But parents, it's shocking behaviour.
But this is not a new thing. I mentioned on one of the early pods, back my first team. I think we were either under 9s or under 10s, and I couldn't remember the name of the team. It's Arnos, as in Arnosville, Arnos FC. And they played about 5 or 6 games that season, and then suddenly their results just disappeared, and they were out of the league. And we did play them, and they weren't that good. But the language from not just the 9-year-olds on the pitch, but the behaviour and by the parents. So this was, I mean, that was 94, so 1996, 97.
Yeah, I think it's been there all the time. The social media, the way of the world, and
this is it. You just mentioned social media, right? Is that part of the reason why we think it's worse? It's worse. And I mentioned this on previous pods. The fact that news is instant. There's 24-hour news. That a story goes on social media posts, and it's around the world in seconds, and everyone's sharing. I share it to you. You share it back to me, and I see it from you, and you share it from me, and we all believe each other. When actually, it's one instant.
It can do, and it can certainly highlight it. I mean, we've said about social media now. You know, when we were both at school, you had an argument with Stubbs on Friday. You didn't speak to him. You didn't do anything. Monday, it was all forgotten about because you've had 48 hours of calling.
And the world didn't know about it.
And in today's world, they're all on their phones and blah, blah, blah. So, there is an element of it seems worse now and it might not be. I think that, again, with the way of the world now...
Well, not just seems worse and might not be. I think it's also made worse because, as you say, they go on social media and they might post at that person.
Yeah.
And so it's actually aggravated by the whole fact of social media.
As a general way of life now, it generally seems people are generally angrier. There's certainly more entitlement. There's more pressure. There's a lot more unrealistic parents who think their child is going to be the next Beth Mead,
Jude
Bellingham, Harry Kane, Messi. You know, they all think that they're going to. So I get where the FA is just to let them play. Winning seems to be more important. Again, I think this is where the FA contradicts itself in a lot of ways, that it's about development and enjoyment, and yet this weekend from under 7s in boys and under 8s in the girls, there's a cup competition going on.
Yeah.
So results are then, even though it's not, but you win something, and so, and which is all about what sport is. But if you're going to have its non-development and blah blah blah, I think they've got to go one way or the other to have these cup competitions.
Yeah, they give you these cup competitions to give you the taste, but at the same time, it then gives that degree of raised tensions around everyone, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It's interesting. The Silent Sport Weekend is in the middle of
of the cup competitions, which is, the 6. Yeah, it is. We'll be playing, and there'll be teams that will be looking. If you win, you're going to a final.
It's the last weekend of the cup, isn't it? Last weekend of the cup rounds before to see who's in the final. So if it's the top 2 teams in that group, all the pressure could be on it, and everyone's told, right, everyone shut up.
Yeah.
What? Eh? Oh, imagine it.
And that, And
can you imagine if a league ran a completely silent weekend? Say no coaches allowed to shout, no parents. You give your instruction and that's it. And you can imagine it going wrong on the pitch because you've got to stand there silently and watch it go wrong.
So it's So again, is it mixed messages? But again, in all seriousness and in all honesty, for me, under 11 girls Spring Cup thing, what am I going to do? Put it on my CV that I won that? Does it really matter? No, it doesn't. Let's be totally honest. It doesn't. It'd be nice, but it doesn't matter.
No.
And blah 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 blah. So there is and again for some teams, it will mean a lot, and it will. And
if things are going wrong, they'll get very angry,
and then they will blame the silent weekend. Well, freeway, which I mean, again, I'm sure we can go back to that in 2016. There will be things that happen, and there will be teams. There'll be an incident, I guarantee, and the coach will go, "Oh, the parent," there'll be something that'll get said because of this weekend, and it's.
Well, I don't know if you want to paint a picture for us. Actually, sorry, it's 116. I got my notes here. November the 4th, 2018.
Oh, 18 was it?
Under 11s versus Keynsham Town.
Yeah.
Do you want to paint a picture?
I'm still scarred. I could get emotional about it.
Bear in mind, I believe we had only lost once to Keynsham in our entire history up until that point.
Yeah.
From under 7s onwards, we'd only lost once to them to that point. We play a silent weekend.
And, well, bless him, because he was a fantastic goalkeeper. So the goalkeeper who went all the way through with us. At the time, he was still quite new. And he just needed the odd bit of guidance. And without that guidance, it just went horribly wrong.
But it wasn't just him, was it? It was so many players. Players who, that was it. There's players even at that age who just need that direction and guidance.
Yeah.
And bear in mind, listeners, that Silent Sport Weekend, it was everybody, totally silent. We all had to stand there and just watch and, slowly sink into the ground as it went worse and worse.
And again, you look at it, and we did it we've done it with the girls a bit. We've tried to cut back the coaching that we offer during the matches by about 50 to 60%. And we've certainly cut down the voices. There's a coaching team of 4 between us coaches. We now say, this half, this coach will speak, and that's it. The rest of us will allowed to say, well done, keep going. But any instructions will just come from one voice. And even that's having its own issues. But yeah, that's like, and it makes it because at this age, it's like almost when you go into school. Apart from exams, a teacher's there to teach, and in the word itself, as most volunteers and on their side are coaches. Well, a coach is there to coach, and that is, I think, during game time as well. You are there to coach. If you've told a striker's a classic example. If you've put somebody, and again you're trying to put them in different positions or they're learning the game. If you put your striker as a striker and in a silent weekend after 5 minutes they're suddenly playing centre back, you can't say to someone, we need somebody to go up front because and they're sat back because nobody's saying, well, how's that going to help anybody?
But then we are allowed to do the things in quarters.
Yeah.
So after that, the first quarter, you take them one side and you have that conversation.
And then after 2 minutes, then they drop back.
Exactly. So if they're not taking it on board, you're also allowed to have rolling subs. So you make a substitution and off they come and you talk to the people.
But that's just as an but you could have four. If you
Yeah.
have
What I'm saying is, if they're not taking it on board, is that also a sad indictment on our coaching ability? If we can't get a message across to the players and say, this is what we want you to do, this is how we need you to do it, and just let them play for 50 minutes without interrupting them. I mean, my Wanderers are brand new. I'm more than happy to have a silent weekend where I'm silent and just talk to them at the 4 quarters and let them just play and see what happens. And if we lose, we lose. If we win, we win. But let them give the opportunity to go, it's your voices, girls, and tell them, but make sure they understand it's your voices you're going to hear. So we need you to take a bit of responsibility and take it on yourselves.
I suppose.
And then in those quarters, that's when you impart. What I would say is I talk to the ref before and say, I need 2 or 3 minutes longer in those intervals.
I mean, I suppose the counter argument to it is, your under 9 girls new, I'm under 11 girls, and all the way through, they're children.
Mm-hmm.
Could you imagine Pep Guardiola, Arne Slot, right, boys, Premier League weekend, silent weekend, and these are professional, and they're having to cut where they want them to do. You can see.
Well, that's the funny you bring them up, because most academies, they rarely talk during the game, the coaches. Most proper academies rarely talk during... The academies that I've been to, once they're up and playing, they don't talk that much. They might... they're not silent, don't get me wrong, they're not silent, but they're not giving... If us on the side give 100% instruction, I don't mean as in all the time, but the amount of talk I give is, say, 100%, they'll give 10%.
Yeah, well, I don't think I'm doing myself. I don't think you...
Because they've given the instruction during the week or whatever, and they rely on the children to then go out there, communicate.
I think certainly at the younger academy teams, I've seen older academy teams, and again, unfortunately, even with the older academy teams, they're under pressure to get results.
See, I know that there's I think it's, who is it? Is it Charlton? I think it's Charlton, who there are games where they actually say, okay, boys, it's so-and-so, your turn to be captain. You pick the team, you do the tactics, and you run the team. And they'll actually put that. So it's not even... So the boys become leaders. Imagine
they do that in the semi-final of the Academy Cup.
No, not necessarily, but we're talking about a silent weekend. They're actually asking the players to take on that leadership role on the pitch, and they'll just stand and watch, because what they're doing is they're then looking to see who are the players who can take on board the instruction they've given before the game, but not just take it on board, also play through it, and also support the others on the pitch through it as well.
And how they learn and how they develop. And that is a good part of it.
Now, I know that's academy level, and we're not.
Yeah.
But it's the idea behind it, isn't it?
It is, and that is, we're trying with our lot is, we're trying to be quieter, and so that they learn and develop. And you can see a difference in it, in some of the girls that do it. But you've also, again, with coaching and stuff, a lot of girls, boys have lots of learning. They all learn differently.
They do.
And you can have some teams that haven't got a Scooby-Doo.
No.
But they just want to go out there and enjoy and blah, 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 and have lots of... And you can have... But you have to have some... Right, you've got to have some sort of... Or is it just be a shambles?
But again, I'll come back to you as well. It's a weekend.
It is.
It's not every week. It's a weekend that you're saying to everybody.
I don't know.
And in fairness, like I said, they're actually saying the coaches can talk.
Yeah. So I think that's a good.
I'd rather they didn't. I honestly rather it was just like you impart your knowledge and off they go and let the kids learn.
Because unfortunately, with our lot, and we got out. There are ways and means around it.
Oh, we know.
And
we
played it again in the Silent 122. Was it 22-23? We played a team, and the coach, his way around it was to chat to the subs and got the subs to tell him. It was literally he was telling them, and they were shouting out. So he wasn't doing it. It was the subs that were doing the talking, and it was literally what the coach was saying.
Completely defeating the object.
And there will be people like that who will, and I imagine that was a lot of the feedback that come back. Well, people are finding means and ways around it. I had on a silent weekend, and hilariously, I had one parent who was giving signs. They'd worked out a sign language thing to say, and so she spent half the game looking over to see what signs were being bloody.
So not concentrating on MASH at all.
No.
Yeah.
And again, people will always try to find.
But in that situation, I'd have hugged her off. You're not concentrating on the game.
Again, what were we then? And it was difficult to even say. I didn't realise it was going on until after the game.
Yeah.
Well, what the blimey was going on? But and they said, he was doing sign language to her. So I was like, okay. But again, I have the thing with even like that. You're penalising the girl, and it wasn't her fault. Dad's told, right, I'm going to do X, Y, Z signs. So it's unfortunate. I think that it's in this year, and they're will make a big thing. And like you said, it isn't about development; it is about safety. And I think what will happen if it carries on bad behaviour. Apart from that one incident, I've not heard of major. I mean, there are incidents that people do have to realise that it is children's football, and they wouldn't behave. Parents wouldn't behave like this anywhere else. It's nuts. I mean, I said my daughter does swimming, and some of the. I've never heard anything against the coach. Not one thing.
Yeah.
It's just pure encouragement.
Yeah.
As quickly as you can. And yet in football, parents seem to think that coaches and players and refs are there to be shouted at.
Yeah.
A lot of the time.
Well, they'll shout at a 7-year-old. Why can't you do that? I mean, a 7-year-old. Why can't? I'd like to throw a ball at them and say, catch that. Just control that.
And having a go. And one of the other things, which is good for the silent weekend, is certainly in grassroots and junior football. Certainly here, a lot of the refs are children, and they get shouted at all the time.
That is a good point that a lot of people don't pick up on, isn't it? That it allows the referees to actually operate with a much more relaxed manner.
Yeah, without getting the grief that they get.
Unless it's from the coach.
Well, potentially. Maybe that should be the thing, that the coaches can speak to their players if necessary, but they're not allowed to shout at the refs. That I would have maybe...
Well, they're not allowed to shout at the refs anyway.
Well, no, they're not meant to, but they do. And it's...
Okay, BritishFootballCoaches.com say, much of the reason why coaches protest about silent weekends is because their method isn't coaching the team in training, it's instructing them during games. Now, that power has been temporarily taken away from them. And there are coaches who basically control their players like a video game and a joystick.
Yeah.
And that for a lot of coaches is why they complain about the silent weekend. And they say, as a coach, ask yourself the following question. They've got a lot of it here listed. How confident would you be that your team would perform at or close to their regular levels if you weren't there, or the coaching team weren't there? Yeah. Are they able to warm up without you? Is there a player or group of players that can form team talks? Do they know the in-possession shape, the out-of-possession shape? Do they know how to press or defend as a unit? Can they build up and create attacks? Do they know defensive organisation at set pieces? Now, all those questions, how confident are you that your team, or say Gaz at his team, or Bernie with his team, without any of the coaching staff there and parents being quiet, how confident would you be that your team? I'll be honest, I'm not confident in my team. I'm still like I'm working with them.
It is, yeah.
That's the thing. He's not coached. It's done. You know, a lot. I've seen a lot of coaching, even at semi-academy level, where they do drills at training. It's just drills. You know, quick movement drills. No thought of actual coaching. No thought of set up the phases of play, of how to sort of set up a pressing or defending or organisational units. It's just like very quick 3v2 drills, 4v3 drills, overloads, that sort of thing. No actual coaching. And then it comes to a game, and they have to shout because they've not been coached. So the silent weekend comes along. We're like, the teams don't know how to do this, or that because I've not told them, because I'm just telling them to run around. And that's a lot of the problem. So that is a big reason why BritishFootballCoaches.com say that a lot of coaches protest about the silent weekend. And I can fully see that.
Yeah, I can see that. It's understandable.
Especially at the younger
methods,
ages.
yeah.
Especially at the younger ages.
Yeah.
But even at the older ages, I mean, go back to our under-16s. Would you have been content that if we hadn't been there, they'd have known the in-possession shape, the out-of-possession shape?
No.
You know?
They don't. They said that it's all learning, and it's...
Or if when we lose the ball, that if we're playing 4-2-3-1, that the 3 didn't have to get back so quick when we lost the ball, because the 4 and the 2 gave more defensive cover, compared to 4-4-2, the 4 and the 4, you do need defence. But would they have known that, even though we told them? No. Would they have remembered that if we'd have said, go on then, boys, we're going to stand over here and have a beer, you go and play the game?
No, of course not.
And then, but as under-16s, we had explained that to them a number of times.
Yeah.
These are the format, this is the setup. Because we're playing this setup, this is what you do when we're out of possession, when we lose it. This format, this is how you do it.
I mean, I think, and again, you could look at grassroots and even the academy and stuff like that. We have them for an hour to 2 hours a week. So to get across everything, and by the time they've turned up, you've done the actual probably drill and doing stuff like that is probably 20 minutes.
Yeah. Especially work with shape as well, and understanding possession and everything else.
Yeah. So it's 20, 30 minutes. So no, it's the simple answer. Because there's not enough time to do that.
Which then begs the question, are we as coaches concentrating on the wrong thing, and the silent support weekend and the opportunity to all be quiet show up the fact that are we actually concentrating on the wrong things? Because you ask yourself these questions, and if the answer is generally no, are we doing the wrong things in training? Doing A, B, and C?
Yeah.
Should we be doing X, Y, and Z instead? Or should we be doing a bigger mix of both? If the answer to all of those questions there is actually no, I wouldn't be confident, then should we change our coaching methods? And is silent weekend a good way of showing that?
I think it's a way of you learn as coaches as well. There's certain development things, and it's one of these things you've always got to be learning. The silent weekend again, I said it won't. The current format doesn't really change anything; it just changes the parent side.
Yeah, it does.
So that form, but a total silent weekend, is you could look at things differently on how you do things.
Well, as I said, you go back to the Keynsham game. I think we only lost once or twice in the early days, and they beat us 7-2, and it showed to me how badly we were, not necessarily how badly we were coaching them, but that perhaps we were coaching them the wrong things.
Yeah.
Because Keynsham, well, for a start, I can remember what happened. Half time, Keynsham running in to Gary, stood there quietly while he talked to them. Our lot came ambling over. A couple of them were getting drinks, talking to each other. It's like, boys, look at that over there. They've stood there quietly, they've listened, and now they're ready. And our lot were just mucking around, and all those little things. But on the pitch, they knew where to stand, they knew how to pass it. In a game where we could talk to them as well, we knew we could win that.
Yeah.
But without us. So that, to me, showed us up that actually, much as we do a certain way of training, we also need to work on something else as well. So it was a good eye-opener, I felt, in terms of how I and you and Gaz and we're coaching them.
I mean, and how you do coach. And again, it's difficult to get it. Yeah, your point's got. They're young minds as well, and if they get used to a certain way, then they can get, like I said, ambling across and stuff, because they know that's what's expected. So, yeah, totally get that. And
Because I do believe that Silent Weekend already has focused in on the bad behaviour. I mean, rightly so. It's
yeah.
focusing. It's making a thing about bad behaviour, but it's not all about that. It's about the enjoyment side as well, and it's about the development of the players.
Yeah.
But we are focusing on the bad behaviour. But at the same time, so it needs to be able to allow them to develop.
Yeah.
However, we'll also come back to the bad behaviour.
Yeah, and that's what I said. I think where you are is parents, players, coaches is bad behaviour. I think is the main reason behind.
If it was a free weekend, and you knew when Silent Weekend was, it'd almost be worth saying, okay, this is the game we most don't want to play. That one, okay, we're going to arrange that one for Silent Weekend.
Yeah, I mean, it's there. I think it's a good thing in some ways now. I think there needs to be more education on behaviour and the kids enjoying their football and having fun.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I'm changed my opinion slightly. I'm certainly happy for the parents to be quiet. I think maybe going forward, I think it is something that they might bring in.
Because after that game against Cambridge, we were all like, we hate Silent Weekend.
And I do, and
but I think we were kind of thrust into it, weren't we?
Yeah.
It was kind of our first experience. We didn't really know enough about it.
It was a total silence. It was a total. And
yeah, but as I say, I don't mind doing that now. I think it was completely thrust into us, and it was like, what is it? I don't understand why we're doing it. And it was kind of now, 7 years later, now I've got a better handle on it. I understand the reasons why, but also, it was either like, oh, by the way, in 2 weeks' time we're doing Silent Weekend. What? What? Now we know it's coming.
Yeah.
You can almost go, right, let's change the way we coach so that everyone is more aware that if we're not there, they can still do better without us.
Yeah. And it is getting them to learn and stuff. So
it's nice to hear the parents be quiet as well.
It is nice to hear the parents be quiet, especially because they come, again, where it does confuse the children, it's the contradictory. If you're told to do something and then they're being told to do something different over there, makes it totally...
Well, it's funny. I was watching my juniors get Porter's Head on Sunday, and Porter's Head brought 2 coaches, and yet I could have sworn there were 4 of them because on the other side of the pitch there were 2 parents wandering up and down the line shouting at players. But they were just parents. But it looked like there were 4 coaches there because they were one, especially one in this big sort of long drive road, just wandering up and down, shouting at players, and yet half time, quarter time, whatever. Just the 2 of them. So, I'm sure for them as well, it'd be nice to just have the coach's voice only.
Yeah. And that makes... Yeah, and it does. It's all...
Because without naming names, have you got parents who you go, oh, I wish they'd just be quiet? Or you got players who look at parents?
Yeah.
Because I got players in both the girls' teams I'll give them instruction, and then they'll go on to play, and then 5 seconds later, I'll see them look to parents. And you'll see the parents say something. And it's like, no, because how do I know that's the same thing I've just instructed you to do? And I know full well that if it's different, she'll do what they said do.
Yeah.
Even though I've just instructed her.
No, I think it makes a lot of... Yeah, and it's a pain because it confuses them. I mean, you say, oh, and they look at you, and by the time they've made the ball's in the back of the net half the time.
Yeah.
Because the child who was going to do something, and each child, again, as teachers will say, have different coaching methods as well. And so, yeah, a parent wouldn't go into a classroom and tell them to do something different to what a teacher's told them to do. A parent, again, swimming and stuff, It is weird.
So much as I believe silent weekends should be totally silent, I am still looking forward to this silent weekend where it's just the parents, because at least it allows myself and my coaches I'll be with the Wanderers, just to give the instructions to the kids, and at least if we do shout during the game, it's just our voices they'll hear, and that'd be quite nice just to see how they react when it's just our voices. It'd be quite. Even though I think we're playing a first division team in the cup, but that's the way it is. In fact, I'm sure we are. But hey,
I mean that's another conversation. Is these cup competitions? But
that's the way it is. Okay. Any last thoughts on silent weekend from you?
I think generally it's good. Now I think. Unfortunately, it's more good for safety. I don't think it's in there for the development, which was what the
original intent. Yeah, but it's more. You think it's more needed for safety.
Yeah,
which is a real shame.
It is. I think that'll highlight it. I think eventually you'll get statistics out from the FA. This on a normal weekend is the reported number of incidents we have. On silent weekend, it dropped by X amount of %.
So many.
They might end up going that way, but yeah.
For me, looking at the word of an office, micromanagement is often cited as the worst trait a manager can have when working with their employees, and that's no different when you're coaching youth sports. And I think parents often equate constant information as coaching, and yet it's not. You have to give them time just to process. It's nice to give them the information, let them process that, and go out and see what they do with that information. And that's what I would like them to do. So that's me.
Yeah.
I think I'm in a bit of a minority, and yet, like I said, 7 years ago, that first silent weekend, I hated it. But now I've gone completely the opposite way. I want the completely silent weekend, which is quite interesting. But it shows how views can change.
Yeah, and I said it is all change. Things can definitely change.
But even our views, like I said, completely against completely silent. But now I'm for it. So, okay, Mark, thank you very much.
Thank you, Andy.
And listeners, I hope you enjoyed that, and listen out for the next one. We'll see you soon. If you like this podcast, then please email us your questions, comments, random thoughts, anything you want to share with us at greengrassroots@gmail.com. You can contact Mark and Andy through X at Fry Club JFC, on Facebook via Fry Club Junior FC, and the Fry Club website is www.fryclubjfc.co.uk. You could also type out a fantastic review on Apple Podcasts or give us 5 stars on Spotify. You've been listening to a We Haven't Got a Clue What We're Doing production, produced and edited by Andy Glover.